Retreat Series, Dhamma Talk number 64. We are dealing with Dhamma Vipassana, mindfulness of Dhamma. Today is the part 2 of the same heading. Last talk we discussed on how to practice Dhamma Vipassana on 5 hindrances. Just to cap it, one must know when a hindrance is present. When it is present, one must know it is present in me. And also, one must know the cause of the arising of the hindrance. And also, one must know when the hindrance is absent, know as it is absent in me. And also know the cause of the non-arising of the hindrances. And when the hindrances disappear or ceased or become absent, at that moment one must put an effort to note, let's say, disappearing. One must know the moment when it disappeared, disappearing. And these things one must be able to reflect. It is present in me, it is absent in me. And also, these hindrances are present in others, and also it will be absent in others. And when you are able to observe that way, you are practicing Dhamma Vipassana on the 5 hindrances. Pincha Nivarana. And Buddha has taught us about the mental world and physical world. Okay. Mental world and physical world in terms of 5 aggregates. Pincha Khanda. And also he taught us in terms of 12 sense bases. And also he taught us these 2 worlds in terms of Four Noble Truths. He taught us in many different ways, many different approaches. And he used each of these based on the capacity of the audience or the person who is listening, which approach will be most effective for that person. This person will be able to comprehend this way or that way. And based on his capacity to size up the intelligence level and capacity level, he used different approaches, different ways, different views to look at the nature of self, to look at the nature of the physical world and mental world. That's how he taught. That's why he's called the master of all teachers. His skill. So let's go specific on one of the group, second group. The 5 aggregates of clinging. In Pali, call it Pincha Khanda. Pincha is 5, Khanda is aggregates, 5 aggregates. But here, 5 aggregates of clinging. If you want a full expression in Pali, it's called Pincha Upadana khanda, Vinja is five. Upadana is clinging, grasping. Khanda is aggregate. So what are these five? These are the aggregates of matter. Okay. Rupa khanda. Aggregates of feeling. Vedana khanda. Aggregates of perception. Sanya khanda. And aggregates of mental formation. Sankhara khanda. And the aggregates of consciousness. Vijnana khanda. Those are the five. Under these clinging, they are all different five. In English, quick, one belongs to matter or feeling, perception, formation, consciousness. And these five covers both animate as well as inanimate worlds, physical world and mental world. And we need to know all these things are impermanent, and they are subject to suffering. That is the rule of thumb one should understand. On the onset, of course, we fully understand at the end, but right at the beginning one needs to know all these five aggregates are impermanent and they are subject to suffering. Now the words khanda, aggregates. What is aggregates? We need to know more precisely what aggregates mean, not a dictionary meaning. Under the aggregates, there's a sense of, let's cover, it's a cluster or a heap of things. A cluster of things, a heap of things. Okay. One of the quality under aggregates. A cluster or heap of things. And also these cluster or heap of things can be identified in the past. You can identify in the past. In other words, it has existed in the past. And also it can be identified right now at the present moment. It exists at the present moment as well. And also it can be identified in future. It will also exist in future. So it belongs to three time zones, past, present, and future. That's another quality. And also another quality of aggregates is it could be very subtle and it could be very gross. Okay. Gross. Okay. These matters. Gross form is easily identifiable, big, huge, solid, humongous, rough, tough. That's a gross. Subtle. Subtle means in a way that you cannot even identify or very difficult to identify. That's subtle. Okay, let's say in a matter, okay, when you see a mountain, easy, a house, easy, atom, until and unless you have scientific equipment, it is difficult, but still that's called subtle. Even electron, proton, neutron, even more smaller, that is super subtle. And of course, based on science, we might be even able to find smaller and smaller and smaller, subtler and subtler and subtler things. The Buddha has described all these things in the scripture. We record it in the scripture. So that is also another quality of aggregates, subtle or gross. And also you can find all these things, identify all these things internally, which means in your body, in your personal body from head to toe. And also you can find it in the others. We call it external. All other beings You can identify all these things as well. And all these put together, combined, composite of all these things, we call it aggregates, khanda. And these aggregates are what? It makes you cling, it makes you corrupt. That's why aggregates of clinging. Upadanek khanda. And as they are 5, call it pincha. So, one should know what aggregates means in that fashion. And we are observing, we are being mindful, we are observing these. And when we observe it, we have to observe these things not on a specific form. We have to observe in a pattern of a process, or as a phenomenon, or a natural presentation. In that way, one must observe if you want to practice Dhamma Vipassana. So these are the general rule of thumbs, what you need to understand and how to observe. And these aggregates, these 5 khandas, you can find these in the mundane world. Mundane world means lokiya, the world of nama and rupa, mind and matter. And also you can find them in the ultra-mundane Lokuttara world. Lokuttara world is once you become a noble person, from then, that point onwards, it's the Lokuttara. So all the aggregates in the mundane world are subject to clinging. But in the ultra-mundane world, Lokuttara, there are some sense of feeling, vedana, and some sense of sanya, and some of sankhara still remain. Some vedana, some sanya, some sankhara formation still remain. In other words, in the domains of the nobles, Lokuttara. But these aggregates are not subject to clinging and Lokuttara world, especially in that you can call it easily path fruition and nibbana. Megaphala, nibbana. In those regions, some still remains, but they are not subject to clinging. Clinging, upadana, khanda, aggregates. So let's see one by one and how they go. The first one is aggregates of matter, or rupa khanda. Rupa, that's the original word. It's translated as in English form, something that you can see. Or matter, we know what matter is. We call it materiality. Material process, material phenomenon. And these are all English presentation or translation of the word rupa. Form, materiality, material phenomenon, material process, matter. Now, we are observing. When we are observing, we observe the abdominal movement. Rising movement and falling movement. And we are observing what? We call it mindfulness of the matter. Rupa Nupassana, mindfulness of the body. That's what we call it. Now here, this is happening, rising and falling. But when it is rising and falling in here, one must know that it is a rising movement or a falling movement. But in here, the way you know is a little different. Not just the specific. Let's call it a rising movement. There's a rising movement, but we don't look at it as a rising movement. We call it, we label it, this is rupa, or there is matter or materiality. That rising movement is the matter or materiality. You know that there is materiality. You know that there is matter arising. Not only that, you know there is matter arising, and all that it is matter, but nothing else. One must observe, note, and know that way. This is simply matter, but nothing else. There's nothing mixed. It is pure matter. That's a sense of meaning, the meaning. There's matter arising, and there's nothing else, or but nothing else. That is the way one must observe and know. That's the first step of how to observe rupa. And then one must also know the cause or the reason of the arising of the rupa. Cause or the reason of arising of the rupa. What is that? What is the cause? The cause is this rupa arises, this body arises. We are all based on the body. Why? This body come into existence. The body that you have, I have, come into existence. Why? Because of the actions that we have done in past life, karma. Because of the karma, these are arising, these come to be. And that karma is conditioned by Dhamma and avijja. That rupa form, this body, is due to karma. That karma is driven by Dhamma, craving, avijja, ignorance. Craving and ignorance is driving this Dhamma or karma, and this karma produces this body. Step by step. So, what is the cause of arising? You can call it, in one word, is due to the avijja and Dhamma, ignorance and craving of the past life is producing or making this matter arise. Of course, that one is reflection, thinking process. You cannot see those things. Only Buddha can accurately experience it. But we don't. So in other words, we need to know the cause of arising, but on a thinking power, on a reflection power. In other words, you must really understand this line, this process. And also, that is simply the arising. When it arises, what happened? The next thing, it passed away. It faded away. So if you are in a practical camp, there's a rising movement, and then it stopped. That means the rising movement ceased. The rising movement faded away. In other words, that matter related with the rising movement faded away. And when it faded away, you must know the fading away of the rupa, not fading away of the rising movement. You don't note that way, you must note this is fading away of the rupa. Just in aggregate forms, not in a specific, but you are observing the specific, but you have to see in a larger picture in an aggregate form, the fading away of the rupa. And as soon as it is fade away, you must also know it is fading away. At that moment you can say, or you can note, disappearing, disappearing, fading, fading, or absent, absent. Whichever words that really click to that experience. You must note or say when you know when it disappears, fading, fading, disappearing, disappearing, absent, absent, absent of the rupa. And also you must know the cause of the abandonment of the, or you must know the cessation of, you must know the fading away of, you must know the absence of rupa, the cause of the rupa being present. Abandonment of Dhamma and avijja. Okay. If you look at it, what is the cause of arising? Cause of arising is due to craving and ignorance. And if that's the arising, if it's disappearing, what is the cause? The total abandonment, the total disappearance of the rupa would be the abandonment or total abandonment of craving and ignorance. You must know that way. When you know that it is not experiential anymore, it's a thought process, it's a reflection process. In Dhammanupassana, that is the addition, the experiential and reflective understanding of the Dhamma theory related specifically to that situation. And that is called inferential vipassana. This way of reflecting is called inferential vipassana. One must know that way. It is a hand-in-hand process. You actually experience something and then you know its cause, it knows its absence, you know its cause and why it is caused and what are the cause of total abandonment. In other words, you have a clear understanding of the Dhamma theory of that. And now I'm stating the salient point of these, and one need to know as such along with that experience. That's how one notes. That is on rupa. Okay. Next one is feeling. Okay. Aggregates of feeling. Vedana khanda. Next one. And again here too, same thing. We don't need to go too detailed now. You understand the pattern. One must know when the feeling is rising, okay, there's a feeling arising. It is simply a feeling, but nothing else. Okay, feeling in its own purity, but it's nothing associated with. It is not that somebody is feeling, someone is feeling. Nothing. It's simply a process of feeling. It's a program of feeling, but nothing else. That way one must know and note when there's a feeling arising. And also one must know the cause of arising. One must know the cause of arising and the fading away of the feeling. Must know What's the cause of arising? What's the cause of fading away? So let's see what are the cause of arising. Cause of arising is to be able to feel there must be something. That something is called pain. Pain. Physical pain or mental pain. Physical pain or mental pain is the cause. Feeling or experiencing that pain is the effect. So what is the cause? The physical pain or mental pain, or in general sensation arising out of this physicality and mentality. Sensation, feeling coming out of the physicality and mentality. They must be there. Without those things you can't experience it. And when you experience these feeling and sensation from the physical source and mental source, then it is called Vedana, feeling. That's the cause of Vedana, feeling. That is the cause of the arising of the feeling. That is the absence of that is the cause of the fading away of the feeling. One must know as such. And of course, you can go, why do you have the feeling? Right now, that is the proximate cause, immediate. There's an object that brings out painful sensation. There's an object that brings out pleasant sensation. Proximate cause, immediate cause. But there's a root cause. Root cause, what is it? We have already discussed in Rupa. The na and avijja, the craving and ignorance is the root cause. Because that you have craving and ignorance in the past life, of course if you want to go it, there's a physicality, the body. Because of this body, there's a, when it comes to contact, there's a feeling, Vedana. So the root cause always go back to the na and avijja, craving and ignorance. And of course, you're observing that aggregates of feeling, which is nothing else other than that. And when it fades away, when it ceases, you must know its cessation and note, label, disappearing, disappearing. In other words, simply put, you know precise moment of the ending, but you must note disappearing, disappearing, fading away, fading away. Okay. And then of course always internal excesses. It is me, it is in others. When appropriate, in me is you're right there, but only when you're looking at other, engaging with other at that moment, you have to have that inferential reflection. So the third one is sanya. Sanya is perception. And here sanya is, it doesn't even cover under the full foundation of mindfulness. But sanya is put under the Dhamma. And one of the reasons is this sanya or perception is not distinct or observable like rupa or vedana, like materiality or feelings. Material and feelings are very obvious to observe, but this sanya, perception, is not obvious. So when it is not obvious, only a few might be able to perceive it or know it. Others don't. So it is not put as a separate collection. Some yogi asks, okay, what about sanya? Where is sanya? Because it is indistinct, not easy to observe. But of course, There are some people who can experience it. For those people, you must know the cause of the arising of sanya, the cause of the arising of this perception. What is the cause of the perception? The cause of the perception is an object. Without interfacing with an object, you cannot have any perception. You cannot make any mark to remember. If there's nothing to remember, nothing to mark, how can the sanya arise? So there must be an object to make a mark so that you can recognize. So proximate cause is the object. Proximate cause for the arising of perception is the object. And of course, forever constant cause is karma, which is due to ignorance and craving of the past life, the root cause. And also the absence or abandonment of sanya is the absence or abandonment of craving and ignorance. One must understand as thus. So this part is very, very much in the domain of the inferential or reflection or thinking process. Sanya, some people in your quite still moment with facing that object, some can accurately perceive the perception. You can perceive the perception. And if you do, note it, label it, but know it in this way. Okay, the fourth aggregate is called Sankhara Khanda, aggregates of mental formation. Okay. So if you know these mental formation arising in you, okay, know that. And the causes, what is the causes here? So observation or noting, don't have to stress too much. We have been repeating again and again. But let's go, what are the causes of arising of sankhara? Again, it's the object. Without you interfacing with an object, without you become face to face with a condition or a situation, an object, you will not be doing anything. No mental activities will be forming. No volition will be exercising. So, an object is the immediate or proximate cause. And the karma done in the past due to craving and ignorance is the root cause. So those are the causes. And also absence or abandonments of sankhara is what? The abandonments of tanha and avidya, craving and ignorance. That's sankhara. So the fifth one, aggregates of consciousness in English. In Pali it's called vijnana khanda. And here is, this vijnana is simply a consciousness. Okay. But how can you experience this vijnana or consciousness? Some of you might already have it. When you are experiencing the bare awareness of an object, when you are experiencing the bare awareness of the existence of an object, when we say an object, that person with that awareness does not know what it is, doesn't know it's a man or a woman, doesn't know it's a tree or a house, doesn't know it's a river or a sky. Simply know there is something. without any extra, without size, shape, color, form, pattern, without any emotions, simply an object. There is something. That is bare awareness. When you have that bare awareness of an object, then at that moment you are experiencing the consciousness or vijnana. That way. So when I explain that what bare awareness is, it is totally different from the way you are aware with mindfulness. It is totally different from the way you are aware of an object with sanya, perception. Perception is size, shape, color, form. But vijnana awareness is simply there is something, an object. It might be a person walking by. You don't know whether it is a man or a female, male or a female. Just a person passed by. If you're aware of a person, that's it. No adjectives. Pure awareness of an object. So that is vijnana. Okay. So when your meditation is very steady and good, with continuous momentum of mindfulness and concentration, you will have that bare awareness. Okay. Sometimes you have a mindfulness, sometimes you go deep enough, you are mindful only of a presence of an object, something. That's bare awareness. And also some people will experience a pure but very alert and awake awareness. You know, but you're very alert, you're very awake. And also mixed with nothing to such a level you feel like, you think, you're sure, you know, but there's nothing to know. You know, but there is nothing to know, as if there is no object. Those kind of experience some will definitely experience. But of course, there's an object. Consciousness cannot arise without having an object, physical or mental, one or the other. But at that moment you experience, in your experience, there's simply a knowing power, knowing energy without any object. Of course, let's put it this way. Can you aware of a space? Is there anything in space? There's nothing in space from our perception and comprehension. But space itself is a quality of a materiality. If space is present in you, you won't be able to see or know anything. So there's a little peek into our riddle, as if there's no object. If there's no object, there's a space. You are aware of the space. But in your experience, we are so conditioned to the form. We thought there's nothing. But anyway, that is vijnana. It cannot arise without any object. So those are the 5 aggregates. If you are observing, that is the way to observe. If you are observing as Dhamma vipassana, there's a lot of reflection and thinking and inferential vipassana involved, because the causes are beyond our experiential level. Okay, the next one is another group, 12 sense bases. Okay, 12 sense bases. Dvidasa ayatana. Dvidasa is 12, ayatana is basis. Okay, so what is ayatana? Okay. Ayatana, Pali word. It means basis or places where consciousness and some mental factors arise from. It is the basis of places where consciousness and some mental factors can arise from. And that's what we call ayatana. That's why we call it basis. For a consciousness to arise, they must have a place to arise. Without that place, they cannot arise. In other words, mind and matter. Okay. So, basis. We have 6 internal bases and 6 external bases. That's why we call it 12 bases. 12 divided into 6 and 6. 6 internal, 6 external. Okay, what are the 6 external bases? External, outside. The outside is visible form, visible objects, objects that you can see with our human eyes. Visible objects or form that have size, shape, color, only then we can see. That is one base. Another one is sound. Another base. The third one, smell. The fourth, taste. The fifth, tangible object, something that you can touch. And the sixth is Dhamma object. Dhamma object. Dhamma is not physical. Dhamma consists of mental factors, cetasika, and also subtle form, very, very subtle form of materiality, something that we cannot really see or feel, subtle forms of matter, and also nibbana, nirvana. Those are called Dhamma objects. Mental factors, subtle form of materiality, and nibbana. That is the 6th base, internal basis. Or you can call it a mind. And what are the 6 external? There's 6 internal bases. 6 internal bases are your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. That's 5. And there's another basis called Hadaya Buddhu, the heart base. The heart base. So 6 internal bases. These internal bases, there's another one. These bases, they are called the receiving elements. Receiving elements. The external bases are called striking elements. That's another word they use. If you want to call in terms of elements, that's what they call. External bases are called striking elements. Internal bases are called receiving elements. Because, let's say, the form, where do they go and strike? They strike the eye. So the eye is the receiver, the form is the striker. Striker and receiver, or striking elements and receiving elements. One should also understand that way. Because this pair of 6 internal and 6 external, this pair of 6 respectively and mutually correspond to each other. In other words, form with the eye sound with the ear, smell with the nose, taste with the tongue, touch with the tangible object with the body, and Dhamma objects with the mind. That's how they correspond to each other. This external object or striking element hit the corresponding internal object, receiving element. To give an example, the form hits the eye. At that moment, corresponding consciousness arises. If it is the eye consciousness arises. If it is sound and ear, hearing consciousness arises. Eye consciousness or seeing consciousness. Ear consciousness or hearing consciousness. Whichever word you prefer. Nose consciousness or smelling consciousness. Corresponding consciousness arises whenever the corresponding external and internal objects strike and receive. So these things are tongue consciousness, body consciousness, or thinking mind consciousness arises when the Dhamma object hits the heart base. Thinking mind or thinking consciousness arises. So this sixth consciousness, in terms of element, we can call it the igniting elements, because when let's say one piece of rock hit another piece of rock, what happened? Little sparks arises, ignited, fires ignited. So you can call it igniting element, or you can call it arising elements. Those two come in contact and the consciousness arises. Without the object, consciousness cannot arise. Without the external and internal objects striking and receiving, consciousness cannot arise. That's why you can call it, these are the 12 sense bases, or you can call it 18 elements. 6 striking elements, 6 receiving elements, and 6 igniting or arising elements. 18 elements. And whenever a form hits the eye, if the form is pleasant, the consciousness that arises is a seeing consciousness. In that seeing consciousness, desire for that form, pleasure for that form also arises. And these desire and pleasure, or for that matter anger, they are called fetters. F-E-T-T-E-R-S, fetters, asura. So, whenever one is observing these, so we call it 12 bases, one must be aware of these 18 elements, or each case is mean 3 elements: striking, receiving, and igniting elements, as well as the fetters that arises together with it. That is, when you're observing the 12 bases, you must be aware all of them. External object, internal object, and the consciousness, and the fetters that comes along with it. All those 4 groups must be observed as a package if you are observing the Dhammanupassana. Observing as Dhammanupassana. Fetters. 3 elements, but fetters automatically come because the object has all its own quality, pleasant quality, unpleasant quality, greed, anger, desire for it, aversion to it. Those are the fetters. So simply just call it 3 elements: But as there are 6 types, 18 elements, one must be aware of all these things if you are observing as Nupassana. So, fetters, let's go a little brief so that we have an all-rounded understanding. There are 10 kind of factors. 10 kind of fetters. Okay. Number 1 is sense desire. 2, ill will. 3, conceit. 4, wrong view. 5, doubt. 6 is rites and rituals. 7 is desire for existence, clinging to life. 8 is jealousy and envy. 9 is, in English what we don't commonly hear about it, it's called avarice, A-V-A-R-I-C-E. In Pali it's called michariya. Michariya is not stingy. It is something like you own something, you have something, you don't want to lose anything. Okay? You don't want anybody to take it. You do not want to share with anything. A sense of not wanting to deplete or become less in your ownership. That's michariya. Number 10 is ignorance, avijja. So those 10 are called 10 factors. So in here we are already talking about observing, knowing, and the causes, we already know it. But abandonment, what are the causes of abandonment? In general, of course, we know abandonment of avijja and Dhamma is the cause. But it's a lot more detailed. Abandonment of is when it comes to 10 factors. It can be divided into 4 groups. 4 groups based on the 4 mega, 4 path, or 4 noble person, to simplify it. The first one, Sotapatti Mega, the first noble person. In there, it eliminates wrong view, doubt, rites and rituals, jealousy and envy, and avarice. When you attain the first part, consciousness, or the first part, wisdom, that's what you eliminate. Out of the 10, those are gone. Second one, Sagadagami Mega, or the part consciousness of second noble person, or the second part wisdom of this group. It eliminates the gross form of sense desire, not all, but gross form of sense desire, and also gross form of ill will. The gross form of sense desire and ill will, number 1 and number 2 factor, are gone, but still subtle form are still there. But when you reach the Anagami Mega, the third noble person, at that Anagami Mega, what happened was ill will, second factor, is totally eliminated, no more. And also the subtle form of sense desire is eliminated. All the subtle form of sense desire is eliminated. But still some left in the Anagami. And the fourth and the final, Arahata Mega. In there, it eliminates the factor of conceit. And the factors of desire for existence. That's why in the third one we said all settled form of desire are eliminated, but some left. That some is this one. A feeling of wanting to cling on to the existence or to life. Still there. That is the last clinging, the last cling on. Conceit is eliminated. Desire for existence is also eliminated. And finally, all form of ignorance, avijja, is eliminated. Avijja is number 10. These 4 stages of Ariya eliminate different types of factors. Such one need to know. So let's see, let's recap it. Dhammanupassana, how to observe, how to practice Dhammanupassana, mindfulness of Dhamma, on the 12 bases. Okay, each one is different. The takes a little bit different. So one is observing, one is being mindful. Okay. When you are mindful, one must know the eyes. Okay, that's the first one. The eyes corresponding is the form. As soon as there is a form, and the factors arising with the eye consciousness, okay, which depend on the eye and form. You must know eyes, you must know forms, and the factors that arises with the consciousness. One must be aware of it. One must know it as the package. And also one must know the reason or the cause of arising or non-arising of these factors. So let's just take it to the key point, factors. One must know the reason or the cause of arising or non-arising of the factors. How? Through cultivation of wise reflection. Yoniso manasikara. Wise reflection, wise attention, wise intention. You must reflect wisely. You must cultivate that reflection wisely. In other words, you must truly understand how this Dhamma works, how the Dhamma process works, how this Dhamma phenomenon works. When you have that, it will become easier. It will become easier. And also knows the reason why this abandoning of the arisen factors come to be. How does it come about? The first abandoning of these factors, the reason, the cause. And also know the reason by which non-arising of these in the future, non-arising of these factors in the future of the abandoned factors. In other words, first of all, you are abandoned. It may be only temporarily, it will be only for the moment, it may be for about a month or a year, but it will still come back. But one thing is, it will never come back in the future. Total abandonment. Know the reason by which none arising in the future of abandoned factors come to be. By reflection, you have to reflect, you have to think. And what is the reason? All different megas, 4 different paths, wisdom. Those are the reason that totally eliminate them. So when contemplating or observing directly, one will see all these 18 elements, 6 striking, 6 receiving, 6 igniting, and the factors that arises and pass away. They arise and they pass away. The factors, you will see them clearly. And when you see them, all of these 18 elements and factors arising and passing away, you come to know, oh, there is nothing I can hang on. There's nothing I can cling on. There is nothing I can hold in what we call in a self. Because these 18 elements is what? It's me, it's you, it's us, it's self. There's nothing. You go so detailed and split it into so much factors and elements, and each one, there's nothing you can hold on. They just arise and pass away. You can't hang on. So whether you call the self in terms of this 18 elements or 12 bases or 5 aggregates, call anything, any approach you like, there's nothing you can hang on. Whether you are internally in yourself or externally in others, of course, through experience and reflection. That's what you come to understand, that's what you become to grasp experientially and intellectually. When yogis see all these things clearly, all the things we have discussed clearly, all the above accounts of, at that moment you can call that yogi is practicing Dhamma based on 12 bases. So that will end 12 bases Dhamma. May all of you be able to practice Dhamma on 5 aggregates or on the 12 bases, and may you be able to understand and what we call self, me, you, I. There is nothing we can hold on, hang on, or grasp upon, or cling on. May that perception become the cause for the elimination of all suffering as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.